more and more people look at Africa with less prejudice. And now I think among the young professionals, Africa has become the buzzword. That's very interesting. We are definitely, I said earlier that we have done a lot of good things. The government of Mauritius has done a lot of good things. But we are definitely deficient in our diplomacy towards Africa. In terms of diplomatic presence, we are up there in Egypt. We are in Addis Ababa because Addis Ababa is the seat of the African Union. We are down there in South Africa. We're not in Kenya. We're not in West Africa. We are nowhere. I've seen, and I was shocked, and I saw that as a shameful thing. In Nigeria, I saw a woman, a white woman from the United States, standing, lining up a group of black Nigerians, giving them placards to campaign against illicit flows and this taxation, double taxation agreement of Mauritius. Well, Africa is certainly an unavoidable and inescapable frontier for the coming decades for fueling the economic development in the world, the economic development of those countries who want to do business with the continent. Just now, the United Kingdom, who is now engaged in Brexit, almost completed, has decided to make of Africa an important partner in its business, both in trade and investment. No one can ignore Africa for a number of reasons. One, a huge population, 1 billion, which puts it at par with China and India. Second, an extremely young population. That means dynamism. That means consumption. That means a labor force, an able, productive labor force. Also because it presents a growing consumption with a growing middle class. It presents itself also as a major supplier of resources, mineral resources, but also potentially, I say potentially because it is not yet there, a major supplier of food for the world, food for other countries which have less capacity in terms of arable land as the African continent. So yes, Africa is already poised to be a player in the world economy, but essentially, Africa is a vast zone of untapped business opportunities for those who want to play on the continent. Not quite. The intention is manifest. The intention is repeated through various government programs, through various budgets, but we are still in a situation where we have been quite timid, we have been quite hesitant, we have not managed to get all our acts in proper order, we have not managed to be very coherent in the way we approach the continent, I have no doubt that Mauritius can and should be, and it is for the future development, future growth of Mauritius, that we should be indeed a hub, I would say, similar to Singapore for Asia, similar to Dubai for the Middle East, similar to Malta today for the Mediterranean countries. Mauritius can play a major role and can benefit tremendously in being the hub for a number of things for the African continent. But we are not there yet. In fact, we should speed up what we have already pronounced as intentions. We can be, and we should be, the trading hub for the whole region. What does that mean? That means, first, that the port of Port Louis should be the port where most goods coming between Asia and Africa is traded through. Secondly, Mauritius should be in a position to be an important manufacturing base through its free-port to produce for what is being imported in Africa, taking into consideration that we already have preferential access to the COMESA, to the SADC market. I will not mention yet the AFCFTA, but COMESA and SADC by itself provides us preferential access, provided we get the level of, set the rules of origin, we get the level of value addition. Pardon. But the actions that have been taken up to now are incoherent. So in short, yes, we can be the hub. Yes, we should have the ambition, but we should move from ambition to execution, and we should be coherent. We should have a number of things done now before it's too late, because the continent is not going to wait for us. Other countries are moving fast. In fact, Mauritius has already been overtaken in some fields, like the information technology. Kenya is far ahead of Mauritius. So we should act fast, and we can be that hub, provided we get our acts clear. Well, there's no blueprint as such. There's a number of things said and done. A number of good things have been done. The most important thing that has been done to the benefit of Mauritius is the fact that Mauritius has invested a lot of time, resources in negotiating its position in the regional trade agreements in SADC, in COMESA, today through the tripartite, the AFCFTA. So yes, this is a good thing that the government has done. Another good thing that government has done is that we have now open visa for most African countries. A third good thing that we have done, but which we have not used properly as a card, is the fact that Mauritius is giving scholarships to about 50 African students. We know that, most countries, when they give scholarships, it's a way to curry favor with this or that country. Unfortunately, we don't do it properly. We just scatter around these scholarships instead of using it targeted on some countries which are more supportive to Mauritius. Mauritius has negotiated a number of double taxation avoidance agreements, has negotiated a number of IPPAs, investment protection agreements. So all these are very good things that the Mauritian government has done. However, what is needed is the real business. Now, the real business is on a number of things which has not yet taken off as it should have taken off, or in some cases not yet started. One is, as I said, being the trading hub for Eastern and Southern Africa. The port cannot do it right now. There is a project for the island port. This project is too slow. And the way they are approaching the project is wrong, right? So developing the port into the port for that region is one important project which is not yet done. The second is in terms of manufacturing in the free port, right? We have preferential agreement with a number of African countries. We have preferential agreement with India, almost done. We have preferential agreement with Turkey. These countries do not have preferential agreements with most African countries. So we can be that gateway where things are produced here to be sold into Africa under preferential access. Thirdly, we have spoken about the education hub, right? Fine, there are a number of African students now studying in Mauritius. However, we are far from the initial target, I think, was 5,000 students. We are far from that. What are we lacking? We are lacking marketing. We are lacking also, to a certain extent, some dynamism from the private sector. So it should be government, it should be the private sector working hand in hand in a coherent manner to develop our imprint, our penetration of that region, whether in terms of trade, in terms of services. Services is not sufficiently supported by government in terms of exports, or in terms of investment into the region. So it's possible. Yes, we can be, but we are far from it yet. And time is not in our favor because others are also moving. First, understanding that Africa is not a country. It is a continent of 54 different countries, and from east to west and north to south, all African countries are not the same. All African countries do not have the same culture. Second, understanding that it's not only in Africa, but it's also in India. The way of doing business is not the way that you know in Mauritius. Third, it's understanding that the format for doing business in African countries is not exactly the format that you do business here. So it's about first defining what is your objective. Once you've defined your objective, then you need to understand the context in which you're going to operate. You need to understand that you have to evaluate the risk and factor in the risk. There are risks, but there are no more risks there than there would be in India or there would be in some other countries. Understanding that some practices are different, and understanding that you need to be able to work in a way that ensures that you get to your objective while having the flexibility to adapt, the flexibility in terms of how you do business. Let me give you success cases. RTO is one of the success cases in Africa. RTO has invested in Tanzania and is highly successful. When they invested in Tanzania, government wanted a share of the company. And government is a shareholder. RTO is a majority, government is a shareholder. But that works. In some other countries, some companies, we took State Informatics Limited to Namibia in 1998. And State Informatics Limited became the #1 IT service provider in Namibia, and then they expanded to Botswana. We took Straconsult ABDS, we took IBL to Namibia. They became the first ground handling service provider at the international airport. So having good information, investing into people who know the how-to, the who-to accompany you is extremely important. Don't be foolhardy and say, I can do it by myself, and you try to replicate what you've done in Mauritius, right? It can be done. There are opportunities. There are huge opportunities, but you need to be properly accompanied. You need to be able to get a good advisory service to be able to identify the risk. Not all the risks are evident, and to be able to shape your strategy with respect to the landscape. Unfortunately, so. I must say, however, that this attitude, which is a prejudice, even in our Creole language, there are words that translate that prejudice. When somebody looks black, we say "Geten Zulu," right? This is clearly a bias, a prejudice. The person who is saying it is not saying it with wrong intent. It's almost unconsciously prejudiced, right? Although there is some conscious prejudices among some people, including some of our civil servants in Mauritius, and equally in the private sector. This is obviously bred into us, have been bred into us since the colonial days, from the kind of education we have received, from our past, and from the fact that Africans came here as slaves. However, I think that this prejudice is on the reduction curve. More and more people look at Africa with less prejudice. And now I think among the young professionals, Africa has become the buzzword. That's very interesting. Although most do not know, most cannot properly apprehend the African countries, but it has become the buzzword. A lot of people in business, a lot of people who are professionals talk about, yes, we need to be in Africa. That's a good sign, but don't rush into it unless you prepare yourself so that you make your venture a success. Mauritius and Mauritians, as people, as individuals, have a good reputation. I have traveled and I practiced almost 49 countries out of 54, and I've always heard good things from my African friends in general about their perception of Mauritius. In terms of one, they perceive Mauritius as a country which has been successful in its development compared to African countries. They perceive Mauritius as being a democratic country, open. They perceive Mauritius as a country where there is ease of doing business. They perceive Mauritians as individuals, because there are a number of Mauritians who have worked or who worked in a number of African countries. They all are welcome and they all are appreciated, because Mauritians are not arrogant. Mauritians are easily mixed with other people because we ourselves come from a multiracial society. So it's easy for us to mix with people of other cultures, of different cultures. And that's the way Mauritians conduct themselves, practice themselves in countries where they are. Some Mauritians are in Zambia for 15, 20 years. In Botswana, you have a number of Mauritians there. In Kenya, in a number of countries. And they are welcome. There has been some attacks against Mauritius by some governments, namely with respect to the double taxation avoidance agreement. But let me tell you how I view that issue. First, these attacks have been mastered and engineered by an NGO from Europe, not from Africa. Obviously, they have their relays in Africa, right? ActionAid, amongst others. I've seen, and I was shocked, and I saw that as a shameful thing. In Nigeria, I saw a woman, a white woman from the United States, standing, lining up a group of black Nigerians, giving them placards to campaign against illicit flows and this double taxation agreement of Mauritius, right? So it is engineered by NGOs from outside Africa, but they have their relays, one, and secondly, they have managed in certain cases to convince some African countries to relook. Nonetheless, I don't think all African countries with whom we have DTAs want to renege on the DTAs. But they do have a problem with one thing, and we should be open to renegotiating that. They have a problem on the DTA applying to companies who are involved in mineral resources, oil and gas. Because they have a reasoning which we can understand, which we should understand. They say, listen, this is in my soil. Gold, diamond, gas, oil, or whatever is in my soil, right? Whether these companies get tax facilities, fiscal facilities or not, they have to come to me to get that resource. So this is something we need to negotiate. I also believe that the Mauritian government has not done enough good diplomacy to talk to the respective African countries, Zambia and others, so that we try to explain that we are not doing harm, what benefits we are bringing to the country, try to find a compromise to maintain the agreement while giving away certain things that we should give away. We are definitely, I said earlier that we have done a lot of good things. The government of Mauritius has done a lot of good things, but we are definitely deficient in our diplomacy towards Africa. In terms of diplomatic presence, we are up there in Egypt. We are in Addis Ababa because Addis Ababa is the seat of the African Union. We are down there in South Africa. We are not in Kenya. We are not in West Africa. We are nowhere, right? That is a shortcoming. We should have a better presence, right? Yes, they're going to tell you that, listen, we have an embassy in Maputo that looks after country X, Y, Z. But we should decide who our main partners are, right? Can we avoid a country like Kenya? No, we should not be doing that. So we need a stronger diplomatic presence. But over and above diplomatic presence, we should have envoys, or call it whatever, that go, that talk, ministers should travel. You know, it's not just now, it's been always the case. How many times have a Prime Minister of Mauritius paid a state visit to how many African countries? And you know, it's in the culture of Africans that this person-to-person relationship is very important. Yet, we don't practice it enough. How many foreign affairs ministers have traveled to a number of African countries apart from going to a conference? I'm talking travel to that country to go and talk to that government, bilateral. So that's missing. Recently, we've heard about a project where the Mauritius Africa Fund is involved, namely the project for special economic zones in Madagascar, in Congo, I think in Ivory Coast, in Senegal. Up to now, nobody understands what exactly these projects are. And up to now, nobody has explained to us what really are the benefits that we're going to derive from Mauritius. It was a good idea to set up this fund. I think this fund should have better been used to have the partnership with the private sector. When I say private sector, I mean the big companies, but also medium-sized companies that want to go into Africa, and to support service providers from Mauritius that are trying to go onto the continent. I'll give you an example. One of the IT companies in Mauritius has been for the last 4 years the IT service provider for Ethiopian telecoms. They've done it on their own. We can have more. We need the support of government. We do, as Straconsult and ABDS, we do a lot of work. We help companies, but government to government certainly can make the road easier for higher penetration of Mauritian companies onto the continent. Well, you know, great people have dreams, and they are right to have dreams. But I don't think that's an issue that is relevant for now, because as we have seen, even with Europe, this is the kind of dream that takes a long, long time. It takes decades to materialize. That's number one. And even when it materializes in the case of Europe, there can be problems like Brexit. Secondly, do we really need what you call and what they call a United States, which is politically integrated? It will be a nightmare. It will be a nightmare. I think Africa is going in the right direction with the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. Let's play it on the economic field and let the existing states have their own political, legal setup, governance systems. Trying to integrate all that is going to be a nightmare.